They should only be Yom Tif. An egg that's laid on Yom Tif. Beishami Omrim Teochel. Beishami says you're permitted to eat the egg, although it's laid on Yom Tif. We'll see, although before it was laid, he wasn't even aware that existed. And even if he was aware, it was something which didn't exist as an egg, because when it's in the chicken, it's what? It's part of the chicken. Beisil Omrim Lo Seochel. Beisil says you're not permitted to eat it. Because it's muktzah. We'll say, the Gemara is going to discuss a concept known as nolad. There's muktzah and there's nolad. Okay? Nola means it didn't exist and came into existence. It's a more extreme case of muktzah. Because the Gemara is going to want to differentiate that maybe even if you don't know the muktzah, you're lenient muktzah, but in regard to nolad, you would agree that it's not going to be permitted because it's extreme. And the Gemara is going to come out and say, Beishamai, just as he doesn't hold the muktzah, he doesn't hold of nolad, although it's a more extreme case of muktzah. And Beis Hillel, not only does he not hold of nolad, which is more extreme, of muktzah. We'll see. So Beishan will be on to Bishami Omrim Teochel. So Beis Hillel lo Teochel. Okay, so Rashi says, lo Teochel when? Bo biyom. Meaning on Yom Tiv. Motzei Yom Tiv, of course you're permitted. Morim first time off. Beishami Omrim Sorbich Zayis. Beis Hillel says, Beishamai says, Ksor to be in violation of Bal Yura Bal Yimotzei. Bal Yura Bal Yimotzei. You're not permitted to possess chometz. If it's sor, if it's yeast, even if you have as little as a kazayis. Right? So the chometz b'chsevis. But if it's chometz, sor is yeast. Yeast is inedible. So that's the lesser share. But if it's chometz edible, it's the size of a large date. So Beis Hillel, Beishamai, throughout Shas is usually the more machmir shita, and Beis Hillel is the more mekel. The reason why we're saying all this has no relevance to our discussion here, we're listing all the cases. These are the three exceptions where Beis Hillel is l'chumra and Beishamai is l'kula. So chometz and chseves, Beis Hillel no zev zebachzayis. They're both, we're strict on both, whether it's sor, if you're in possession of sor kazayis, you're in violation by yirah by yimotzei, or chometz, which is edible, which is less intense as sor, as yeast. If you have a kazayis, you're in violation of possessing chometz, even a kazayis. Hashochet chayiv of biyomtiv. Now the halach is there's a chiv kisei adam. If you slaughter an undomesticated animal or a bird, what do you do with the blood? You have to cover the blood. So if you slaughter shochet of biyomtiv, shamer omrim, and let's say he didn't prepare earth. He didn't prepare earth before Yom Tiv. So the question is, but he has a shovel in a pile of dirt, which the Gemara is going to discuss. So Beishamai says, Yach bedek v'yachase, you're permitted to dig with a spade. It's not a regular case of digging. And you cover the blood. Beis Hillel omrim lo yishchot. You're not even initially permitted to slaughter. You're only allowed to slaughter if you have the earth prepared. Elam ked hoyelo ofa muchan mibod yom. Unless he had dirt prepared from before Yom Tiv. We don't on Yom Tiv, although shechita is permitted. Why is it permitted? Because it's ochel nefesh, right? But if you don't have the earth prepared to do the mitzvah of kisui afterwards, we don't let you slaughter. Umodim, however, Beis Hillel concurs with Beishamai Shem Shochad, if post facto he did slaughter, so there's an imminent chiyuv of kisei adam, sheyach b'dek v'yichaseh. We're talking about, we'll see the Gemara. Then we're talking about with a spade already, he's in the dirt, he's permitted to cover it. Then it says she'efa kiru muchano. In addition, if he has afer of a oven, which is prepared, because it's really nolad. If you put wood in an oven and you burn it, the ash is nolad, right? Because when Yom began it was wood, also now it's ash. It's a new entity. Nevertheless, if it's muchan, you can be permitted to use it. Let's see Rashi. The way we're going to do it, we're going to go to the Mishnah, Rashi, Tosas, then we're going to review the Mishnah again, okay, as a review. Why are these other cases listed? Because these cases are three cases with Beishamai, the leniencies of Beishamai, and the stringencies of Beis Hillel, Gabi Yom Tiv. Therefore, Tonlu Gabi Adori. Therefore, he classifies them as Yudanos, he puts them all together, learns them together. First time Gemara goes to explain each one of these, why Beis Hillel is Mekel, Beishamai is Mekel, Hillel is Machmir. B'chseves, what is Koseves? To be in violation of Yura Bal Yimotzei, you have to have the chometz, which is edible, has to be as large as a date. Rashi says tamra. Is a date. Yach deker, what's a deker? Filo belas. Filo means a spade. Modim shim shochat, but if factually he already did the shechita, can first time Gemara, kishel deker notes bodiyom. We're not spad, he just says a heap of earth. There's a shovel already in the heap of earth, so therefore it's semi-prepared. It's semi-prepared. Shevikir Muchanur Morboy Maikomer. Gemara, what does this have to do with what was discussed earlier? We'll see the Gemara. Tosis, top Tosis. Now, the question is, what it should say, is it permitted, not permitted? That something, is it kosher, is not kosher? Is it mutter, is it osir? What are we speaking specifically eating? Right? Te'ochel, no te'ochel. Let's do this. Vim tomar, amai lo tona osrin v'atirin. Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel is osrin, and Beis Hillel matirin. They prohibit it, they permit it. If it's permitted, it's permitted in everything. It's forbidden, it's forbidden in everything. What does he have to say specifically in terms of consumption? We start a Beya. Okay? Maybe you won't say because osir is mashba even beyond Yom Tov, it's going to be osir. It's incorrect. The word osir is no connotation forever. Why? The Gemara says later, it says if you have a chick later in Yom Tov, osir. And what does osir mean over there? Hainu biyomo. It means on Yom Tov. It doesn't mean beyond Yom Tov. So just over there it says osir. So why it doesn't say regarding the egg? Osrin. Osir matirin. We'll get back to the Mishnah in a second. If you light a candle, let's say Erev Yom Tov, Erev Shabbos, and now the candle burns out, the residue of oil that's left in the candle, are you permitted to use it? Is it muktzah, not muktzah? It says Moses Shem Shnei Rebuda Oser. Rebuda says you're not permitted to use. He prohibits it. There's not even consideration that it's also beyond Yom Tov. So Osrin means exactly what Teochel means. So why does he use this unusual consumption? Say it's Osir Mutter. He says if he would have used that terminology, Beis Hillel is Osrin and Beis Shammai is Matirin. Hayisi Omer Shem Masha Matirin Habeya Hainu Letaltel. Hear this? I would think maybe it's only permitted to carry, not to eat. Just the other way. Avo Bachila Suro. Maybe for certain things it's going to be permitted, for eating not. The Gemara says later, a non-Jew brought fish from Gamliel, added it from out of the Tchum. Sorry, out of the Tchum. So Gamliel said when the guy brought him the gift of the fish, he says they're permitted. But I don't want, because it's something, it'll be misunderstood if I eat it. No, if I take it from it. Umasik, and the Gemara concludes over there, my mutarim. When Ramliel says it's permitted, mutar letaltel, only to transport. Avo bachilo asurin. So you see, we can differentiate between moving it and eating it. So if it was said matirin, I'd say matir only means letaltel. According to Beis Hillel, it seems to be says lo siochel, but to carrying you're permitted. Hokaimelo and daf letaltel also. We hold la halacha, as the Gemara says later, the egg that's laid in Yom Tov, not only you're not permitted to eat, you're not permitted to carry it. So it comes out the word lo siochel is misleading. Lo siochel, I would think, means to eat not, but to carry, maybe you could carry. Right. But factually, the Gemara says later, you're not permitted to carry it. You know why it says achilo? Because what is an egg normally used for? For consumption, for eating. Therefore, Shammai, and they still use the term in terms of what its specific usage is. Achilo, Od Yishlomar, another pshat. The nokat Beis Shammai teochel mishum demasha achilo betiltul. Yeah, achilo includes transporting. If you eat something, you have to pick it up, right? You pick it up to eat. So it's two things. It tells you you're permitted to move it, and you're permitted to eat it, right? Betiltul. Why? Masha achil tiltul. Ve'ein achil bo tiltul. How do you eat something unless you pick it up, right? Beis Hillel asri apitiltul, right? Meaning, really, Hillel could have said osrin. Osrin means it's not permitted, which is all inclusive. But they only use the same terminology as Beis Shammai. Okay? Because Beis Shammai, by saying teochel, it's telling me two things. Firstly, you're permitted to move it and to eat it. Okay, we'll start the Mishnah over again. for you, okay? Beishnol the biyomtiv. Okay, the Mishnah. A meg that's the biyom beishamei omrim te'ochel. You're permitted to eat it. Beisilo omrim lo se'ochel. You're not permitted to eat it. Beishamei omrim sor bechzayis chometz b'chsevis. The Torah says you're not permitted to possess chometz on Pesach, right? If you possess chometz on Pesach, what are you in violation of? Bal yuram bal yimotzei. You're not permitted to possess it. So how much chometz do you have to possess to be in violation of bal yuram bal yimotzei? So Beishamei says if it's yeast, which has the ability to cause other things to become leavened, even if it's as little as a kazayas, that's a sufficient volume to be in violation of Bal Yuram Bal Yimotzei. But chometz, which you can make other, let's say a piece of bread, which wouldn't of course other things become leavened, but it itself is chometz, which means it's not as intense. There you need a larger shear to be in violation. You need something the volume of a date, a large date. So therefore, sor b'chzayis, chometz b'chseves. Chometz is the larger shear. Kseves is a large date. Beisil omrim, beisil zeves b'chzayis. It doesn't make a difference whether it's yeast or it's edible chometz. Either one, it's the less amount. You're in violation of Bal Yuram Bal Yimotzei. Hashochi chayv of b'yom tiv. If one slaughters an undomesticated kosher species or a kosher bird on Yom Tiv, so you have a chiyuv, you have an obligation of kisei adam. You have to cover its blood. Beishamei omrim yachve b'dek v'yichasem. You're permitted to take, if you have a spade in the pile of earth, you're permitted to take the spade and take the earth and cover the blood. Even though when you're taking it out, you're creating it like a semi-hole. It's a question of binyan, which Gemara doesn't discuss. You do it anyway. Beisomrim lo yishchot. You're not even permitted to slaughter. Elo imkein hoilo ofel muchim bod yom. Unless he prepared earth from before Yom Tiv, which is not muktzah, we don't even allow you to slaughter. Or modim, however, they concur with Beishamai shim shochat. If he already slaughtered, sheyach b'dek v'yichaser, then the spade that's stuck into the earth, he's permitted to take that spade out with the earth, cover the blood. She'efa kira muchanu. Also, efa kira, the ash in the kira in the oven, that's considered muchan. That's not muktzah. You can use that ash to cover the blood. Okay, that's the Mishnah.
Would Shammai allow you to dig the hole to use the dirt?
Well, it's speaking about Beishamai. It's all speak only when you had the spade in the dirt.
Pile of dirt.
And a spade in it.
Right. So he would not.
No, you can't. If you're literally digging a hole.
Yeah.
Okay, Gemara. Now, you have two types of chickens, right? You have a chicken which is designated for eating.
Right.
And you have a chicken that's designated for laying eggs. One's called Tarnagolas omedes lachilo, the hen which is designated for eating, or Tarnagolas omedes lagadol beitzim. It's designated just for laying eggs. So the chicken that's designated for laying eggs, what is the chicken? It's not a food item.
No.
Its classification is not food. It's like an egg machine. The bird is designated for laying eggs. Right? Wait. So, but what about if you have a bird that's designated for eating? So, so you're permitted to slaughter on Yom Tiv, right? Pre-Yom Tiv, he was designated to be slaughtered for eating. You want to take that bird, that chicken, and slaughter it, you can slaughter it. Let's say you find an egg inside the chicken. What is the egg in the chicken, in the hen? It's part of the hen. Could you eat the intestines of the chicken? You could eat any part of the chicken. So the egg is part of the chicken. So let's say now the egg is laid. So if the egg was part of the chicken before Yom Tiv, and the chicken itself is not muktzah because it was pre-designated the chicken in the entirety. The outer part of the chicken, the inner part of the chicken. So if the inner part of the egg is part of the inner part of the chicken, and you're permitted to eat the chicken, if Basil agrees you can eat the chicken, why can't you eat the egg? The egg is part of the chicken. That's going to be the worst question. If we're talking about Tanagol Semedes Lachilo, that it was designated for eating, what does Basil say? Lo se ochel. That you're not permitted to eat the egg. The Gemara first is uchel de'efres. It's food that broke off. It's like a food item that broke off the chicken. Okay, let's see the Gemara. Ma'is kinam. What are we speaking about? I have to make a call. Take 2 seconds. what are we speaking about? I mean, what kind of chicken are we speaking about? You see the Gemara. If it's a hen that was designated for eating, so the hen itself, the chicken's not muktzah, correct?
Right.
You're permitted to slaughter it. So my time made a Beis Hillel. So how do we understand Beis Hillel that he says the egg that's laid from this chicken, you're not permitted to eat? Why? Uchle de efresu. It's like food that broke off the chicken. If the entire chicken itself was pre-designated and you're permitted to eat every part of the chicken, so the chicken is no different than the drumstick, right? The egg is no different than the drumstick. So if the drumstick would break off, right, you're permitted the drumstick, so why can't you eat the egg? The egg is part of the chicken. So what must be Ella? Ella is a retraction. You must say we can't even consider it that it's a targol someres lachilo. Ella b'targol someres l'gadol beitzim. It's a chicken that was designated for laying eggs. So what's the status of the chicken? The chicken you couldn't slaughter on. You're not permitted to slaughter the chicken on Yom Tov, right? Because it wasn't pre-designated. It's not a food item. So if that's the case, my time to Beis Shammai. Why does Beis Shammai say you're permitted to what? So if the egg is part of the chicken, and the chicken is muktzah, so if the chicken's muktzah, the egg's also muktzah. So why does Beis Shammai say that you're permitted to eat the egg? Muktzah. The egg is muktzah. Right now the Gemara understands everybody accepts the principle of muktzah. If it wasn't pre-designated as a food item, it should be off limits. So if the chicken itself is not permitted because it's designated as a hen-laying chicken, so therefore as the chicken itself you're not permitted to slaughter on Yom Tov, and so the egg is no different than the chicken itself. It should not be permitted. So Mar says, my kusha, what kind of question is that? What kind of question is going to be Shammai that if it's a hen that's designated for laying eggs, it should be muktzah? Dilma Beis Shammai lesle muktzah. Maybe Beis Shammai rejects the whole concept of muktzah, that something doesn't have to be pre-designated before Yom Tov to be able to use it. Meaning, as long as theoretically it could be used, meaning what causes something to be muktzah? If something is negated, that's when it's muktzah. Or something in its physicality it's not physically edible, and you can't make it edible, right? Then it's but physically the chicken's edible. It's purely what? A designation issue. So as long as it wasn't negated that it's not a food item, so what are you asking? According to Beis Shammai, if the chicken was designated for laying eggs, as the chicken's muktzah, the egg's muktzah. Who said, maybe if a person changes his mind in Yom Tov and he wants to slaughter the chicken, he's permitted to slaughter the chicken. Right? It doesn't have to be pre-designated before Yom Tov. Maybe Beis Shammai lesl muktzah. He rejects the whole concept of muktzah. So the Gemara says, Kol salka daitan, because the Gemara is of the opinion. Now, after l'man deshari muktzah, even the one who permits muktzah, listen to this, beno laroser. I mean, the chicken itself was designated for laying eggs. Okay? Mm-hmm. Beis Shammai would hold on Yom Tov, if he has a change of mind, he wants it slaughtered, he could slaughter it. Why? Because anything which is theoretically could be available, he has that in mind. If I should change in my mind, I want to use it. Okay. But what he has in mind is something that existed.
The chicken.
The egg he doesn't even know the egg exists.
Right.
The egg doesn't exist. That's nolad. It came into being. So maybe that kind of, something that exists, you say in the back of his mind, if I should need it, I'll use it. But you can't apply that to the egg because he's not even aware where the egg exists. So therefore, it's more extreme. So it's lacking a designation. It's lacking, he doesn't even know it exists. So maybe there, Beis Shammai would be in agreement that it should be muktzah. So that's the first question. Even if Beis Shammai doesn't know the muktzah, that's in regard to the chicken. But in regard to the egg, he should concur with Beis Hillel that it should not be permitted because it's nolad. It's something which hasn't been born. So even Beis Shammai should agree that should be considered muktzah. He says, Koso gadaiton, I would have thought, afilu man dishari muktzah, even the one who permits muktzah, ben nolad osar. If it's nolad, it's something which comes into being. Nolad means born. It should be osar. So, my Tami to Beis Shammai. So how do we understand Beis Shammai? What does Beis Shammai say? The egg that's laid on Yom Tov, you're permitted to eat it. So now we're holding Beis Hillel is the easy one. Just as you can't eat the chicken, you can't eat the egg. But according to Beis Shammai, even if he rejects the concept of muktzah, he's only rejecting it because he's of the opinion that theoretically anything which could be available, he doesn't negate. But that's the chicken. But the egg, you can't apply that svara because the egg, he's not even aware the egg exists. Okay, let's read Rashi. Oh, meris lachilo. The more one says, what kind of chicken are we speaking about? If it's a chicken which was designated for eating, she'eno muktzis, right? He never negated it for eating. So if that's the case, uchel deifris, the egg is part ochel shenifrad. The egg is like a food that separated itself from the chicken. Nifrad means separated. The chavero, where do we find something similar? B'mnochas chiburi ochlin command mifrisi. When foods are, let's say you have food as together, you see it as separate parts. It's like particles. So Mara says, Beishamai doesn't know the muktzah. What's the question? What are you asking Beishamai how he permitted to eat the egg? He doesn't know the muktzah. The Dilma, Reb Shimon's relay. It's a machlokes tanoim where Reb Shimon doesn't know the muktzah, Reb Yehuda holds of muktzah. We'll see in a moment. Maybe Beishamai concurs with Reb Shimon. The Oma beperakiro, Moshe Shemesh shebener, shebakara osur. Divrei Reb Yehuda, Reb Shimon matir. Let's talk. Person lights a candle, Erev Shabbos. The oil that's in the burning candle, while it's burning, are you permitted to take the oil out of the candle? Why do you say, Norman? So the Gemara says if you take the oil out of that candle while it's burning, you're in violation of extinguishing. Why? Even though the flame doesn't go out? Because somehow when you not because you shorten it. When you take it out, there's a dimming process. You're affecting the intensity of that flame at that moment. So therefore, that's considered extinguishing. Not because that's called groma. That's causality. It's not going to burn as long as it's meant to burn. At the time that you take it out, there's an effect to the flame. So you're in violation of extinguishing. It diminishes the flame. And that diminishment is due to extinguishing. Okay? So everybody agrees, when Shabbos began, that oil was off limits. But it was meant that when it burns out, there's always a residue of oil. Always a residue of oil left. The question is that oil that's left in that receptacle, if I want to use that oil for a salad dressing, is a muktzah. Reb Shimon says it's not muktzah. Rabbi Yehuda says it is muktzah. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that anything which you cannot use at the entry point of Shabbos, it's called kevin iskatzoi ben hashmoshos. Anything which is off limits ben hashmoshos and the entry point, it's muktzah for the duration of Shabbos. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon says no. Even though when Shabbos began, it was off limits, but since he knows ultimately it will become available, because ultimately we're not talking about a 24-hour candle, we're talking about a 5-hour candle. So 5 hours, this candle is out, the light's out, and it's inevitable that you can have oil in that receptacle. He had his mind on the oil, that if he wants to use it, he should be able to use it. So what do we see? So we find Reb Shimon is more lenient than Reb Yehuda. Reb Shimon says it's permitted. The residue of oil that's left in the receptacle is mutter. Reb Yehuda says it's not mutter. So what's the machlokas? The Gemara says Reb Shimon is of the opinion of muktzah. Since initially it was off limits, it remains off limits. Reb Shimon says no. Initially it was off limits, but since ultimately he knows it will be available, he doesn't negate something that's available. So Reb Shimon is the more lenient opinion. So Gemara is saying now, maybe Beishamai concurs with Reb Shimon. Even though initially the hen was designated for laying eggs, but he could always change his mind. In actuality, the hen could be used for slaughtering. So maybe Beishamai holds like Reb Shimon. So Gemara says, the Gemara says, you know why the question is a question of Beishamai? Initially, we're asking, my time to Beishamai, to go so daita filu Reb Shimon, the sharing muktzah. Even Reb Shimon who permits muktzah, the nolad osir. If it's nolad, if it's something that doesn't exist, he's unaware that it exists. Even Beishamai would agree it's not. Even Reb Shimon would agree it's not permitted, right? Because we're saying maybe he holds like Reb Shimon, but what's Reb Shimon's oil that is there and which will become available? So he's aware of everything. Good. So the chicken, although it's designated for laying eggs, you could use. If he would want to change his mind, according to Reb Shimon, you could use the chicken. But the egg, which he's unaware it even exists, even Reb Shimon would agree that's muktzah. Because after some level of designation, mental designation, it's going to be. So how do we understand Beishamai? That's the first question. Dilu b'muktzah, svirle, lo makzi, inish. This is very important. Reb Shimon's opinion regarding muktzah, lo makzi, inish, daite, miyad, midi, dichozile. Person doesn't negate anything which theoretically could be available to him. So the chicken, is it out of his mind that it won't be used for slaughtering? You never know. He gets an extra guest, he may need it. Even though presently it was designated for laying eggs. Avol nolad. But the egg that's laid, Lavi Yodad and the heavy Dati Alu, he didn't even know he was supposed to think about it, because he didn't even know it existed. So if that's the case, maybe, so how do we understand Beis Shammai? There's no such opinion who holds, even Reb Shimon would hold it's not permitted. So what's the basis for Beis Shammai's opinion that the egg is permitted? That's the first question. You have a question?
It just went out, it seems like the logic is the same, though, because if this is a chicken that produces an egg every day.
But it doesn't necessarily produce it every day.
So frequently, every other day.
But you have to have in mind what exists. It has to be in mind what exists. What exists now, I have in mind if I want to use it. Even though now I don't, I have in mind if it should come about, I want to use it. The if is only if it's a reality that you know it exists. The egg itself, you don't know whether it exists.
So even if you're expecting the reasonable expectation it's happening, it doesn't come.
It's not enough. It has to be a reality of existence, like the oil, like the chicken. These are realities of existence. Okay? It's very interesting, because and this needs clarification. We said, Gemara said, if it would have been a hen which was designated for eating, the Gemara said we don't understand Beis Hillel, because the egg is like part of the chicken, right? So why should we're talking about a hen that's designated for laying eggs? The Gemara says, how do we understand Beis Shammai? What do you mean? If I want to change my mind on the chicken,
I should be able to.
You could. So if we see the egg before it's laid is the equivalent of the chicken, so if I didn't negate the chicken from my mind, so I didn't negate the egg either. Right? We see it one and the same. So how do we differentiate? You hear my question? According to Beis Hillel, if it was designated for eating, we see the egg. The Gemara says the egg cannot be muktzah. Why? Because it's part of the chicken. It's like a piece of the chicken broke off. If I could eat the chicken, means the chicken, it's like the intestines. I mean, permitted to eat intestines. It's all part of the chicken.
Right.
So the egg's separated from the chicken.
Right.
And yet, when Beis Shammai say, even though you could eat the chicken because the chicken's not negated, but the egg, he didn't know, so what? But he has in mind, if he should want the chicken,
he could eat it.
He could eat it, so the egg is part of the chicken. So how do we differentiate? It needs some refinement. So I think this is the difference. If actually the chicken itself is designated for eating, that means this entity and whatever's in it, I have in mind I want to eat.
Right.
Right? Okay, so therefore the Gemara didn't understand Beis Hillel.
We understand.
Wait, so the Gemara says if that's the case, if the egg's laid, you should be able to eat the egg, or Beis Hillel, if the chicken was designated for eating. According to, if it was designated for laying eggs, why is it not muktzah? Why is it not muktzah? Not because he had in mind, I want this to be the food item. Because it was never negated.
Right.
What was never negated? The
Yeah.
chicken.
Right. Yeah.
To be muktzah, you need a negative. You need a negation.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's neutral. But that I have in mind the chicken and everything, it's in the chicken I want to eat, you didn't have that in mind. So therefore, as a result of that, the chicken has been negated. So what exists wasn't negated, but what about the egg? We're not saying the chicken is a food item, but to be muktzah, you need a negation.
Right.
But you need something positive. According to Beis Hillel, you had a positive intent. So when I had in mind, I want the chicken as food, that positive intent affects even what's inside the chicken, even the egg.
Good.
Here, according to Beis Hillel, we're saying if you don't need any positive intent, as long as you don't have a negative intent. So if that's the case, look, as the chicken is one entity and the egg is a separate entity. So if that's the case, it should be nolad. That's the first question. Okay? So we're saying now, we want to say, Beis Hillel, why can't you eat the egg? Because Beis Hillel holds like Rabbi Yehuda, of muktzah. He holds a muktzah. And Beis Shammai holds like Reb Shimon. Okay? So Gemara says like this. Umi Omer of Nachman Hochi. How could you tell me now the reason Beis Hillel holds you're not permitted to eat the egg is because he's more machmer regard to muktzah, because he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. And Beis Shammai holds like Reb Shimon, which is the more lenient opinion. Right? Hotanan, we learned in the Mishnah, it's Mishnah at the end of Shabbos. Let's say you have a table, you finish eating a meal, and you have bones which are inedible. They're not even fit for dog consumption.
Right.
So what is it? It's like garbage.
It would be-
And you have peels that are not edible to give to an animal. So the muktzah, what's lying on the table is muktzah. Now how do you clear the table? Are you permitted to engage directly with the peels and the shells and all that to remove it? Okay, we'll discuss in a minute. So okay, so the Tanna Kama holds you're permitted to directly remove from the table the bones and the peels, and the peels. Beisil Omrim, Beisil says no, you're not permitted. Mesalik is a tavla minaro. You lift up the tabletop and you just shake it off. But to engage directly with the muktzah, you're not permitted. It's like indirect. Indirectly, you're removing the muktzah. 1 second. So he says, so now Rav Nachman, Omer Rav Nachman, Onu ein lono ela beishamik Reb Yehuda. This Mishnah he says, Beishamai falls b'zir Reb Yehuda. What does that mean? If Reb Yehuda holds a muktzah. So since the bones themselves are not fit to give to a dog, and the peels are not fit to give to an animal, therefore, that's the reason Shammai says you're not permitted to engage with it. You take the tabletop and shake it off. It'd be Silk Reb Shimon. Why does he hold that you're permitted? Because he holds like Reb Shimon, that since it has been negated, it's not muktzah. Okay?
Answer has not been negated.
Has not been negated. Second. Let's see Rashi. Magbiyan. Umi Omer Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman's the one. Oh, we skipped. Omer Rav Nachman. So we're speaking about a hen that was designated for laying eggs. Ud islay muktzah, islay nolad. The one who's of the opinion of muktzah, he accepts the principle of nolad, although it's a more extreme case of muktzah, because he doesn't even know it exists. Right? With the leslay muktzah, and the one who doesn't know muktzah, which is Beishamai, leslay nolad. Although nolad is a more extreme case of muktzah, because you don't even know it exists, nevertheless we treat it like muktzah. So the one who's lenient in regard to muktzah, he'll be lenient in regard to this. And the one who's strict, which is Beis Hillel, he'll be strict in regard to how we'll paskin by the egg itself, that you shouldn't be able to eat it. Okay. Back here. Excuse me. Hear this? Rashi says, bones that you can't gnaw on them. They're not fit for human consumption. Not considered about muktzah. So the Moran wants to say, so what does Beis Shammai hold? Beis Shammai clearly follows position of Reb Shimon. He doesn't know the muktzah. Therefore, you could directly engage with the bones and the peels, even though they're not for animal consumption. Beisil Omrim, aim the taltalos miyadayim. You're not permitted to engage directly with your hands to touch it. Shemuktzah, the muktzah. So what do? El b'sal katablo, you remove the tabletop. Sheyesh toras kli oleo, it's considered a kli, even though it's removed. Uminaro, and you shake it out. That's it, but not engaged. V'omer Rav Nachman, ein lonu elo Beishamai Reb Yehuda. Beishamai follows Reb Yehuda, Beisil Reb Shimon. We got a problem here. Rav Nachman says we only have Reb Yehuda, Beishamai follows Reb Yehuda. Right? Okay, now. Okay. Ein lanu elo Beishamai Reb Yehuda, Beisil Reb Shimon. Let's see Rashi. Ein lanu shitas Mishnah zu lefi shemachlef shitasa elo kach shemati. Beishamai Reb Yehuda Machmari, the most Beisil Reb Shimon. Okay. What time is it? Okay, we have time. We'll go further. Amalach Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman says, Gabi Shabbos, the Sosam Tano Reb Shimon. The Mishnah we just quoted here, right? That Mishnah is in Shabbos, which says, according to Tanakama, you're permitted to remove the bones and the peels directly. Beis Hillel says you shake off the tabletop, okay? And Rav Nachman says, Ein lonu elo beishamik Reb Yehuda, Beis Hillel Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon, Reb Yehuda, Reb Shamik follows Reb Yehuda was more stringent in regard to muktzah, and Beis Hillel follows Reb Shimon was more lenient. Omer loch Rav Nachman, Gabi Shabbos, the Sosan Tano Reb Shimon. On Shabbos, usually we say halacha. If you have an anonymous Mishnah, we say halacha kistam Mishnah. We rule like anonymous. So if we rule like or an anonymous Mishnah, who do you rule like? No evidence. Go like Beis Hillel. We rule like Beis Hillel. So if the halacha is like stam Mishnah, like anonymous Mishnah, we'll follow Beis Hillel's position. Okay? Titnan, what does it say in the Mishnah in Shabbos? You have gourds, and you want to cut it up for animal consumption. Right? You're permitted. Meaning, even though there's a degree of exertion, when you cut up these big vegetables for animals, for them to eat, there's a degree of exertion. You're permitted to exert yourself for your animals, even though it's Shabbos. You would think maybe you should not permitted to exert yourself on Shabbos. Of course, it's a disrespect for Shabbos. The answer is no. That you're permitted to exert yourself to feed the animals on Shabbos. Let's say an animal dies right before Shabbos. So already was classified as nevelo. Now, what did you do with nevelo in those days? Cut it up, fed it to the dogs.
Right.
There was no Jew would buy it. Okay. There's nevelo v'nei klovim. Okay. Mukum lo lebeis Hillel Reb Shimon. He says, in regard to Shabbos, Rav Nachman says this brisa here, this Mishnah, he's attributing to Beis Hillel. To Beis Hillel, and Reish Hillel holds like Reb Shimon, because this is lenient here. Nevelo, when did the animal die? It didn't die. If it died before Shabbos, it's not muktzah.
Right.
It died on Shabbos.
Shabbos,
So what if it dies on Shabbos? What does that mean? That means when Shabbos entered, the animal was alive.
Right.
So we should say kivim niskatzoy ben hashmoshes silkul yoma. At the entry point, it was muktzah because it was alive. It's like the candle burning.
Reb Shimon would say it's
So Reb Shimon said it would be permitted like the residue of the oil. He knows the animal's on the brink of death.
good.
But as long as it's alive, you're not permitted to kill it, to slaughter it.
But it's dead, then you can cut it.
So that's what he's saying. So if that's the case, Rav Nachman said the Mishnah in Shabbos that it says you're permitted to take the carcass of the animal, feed it to dogs. He establishes that Mishnah is going like Beis Hillel, because Beis Hillel doesn't hold the muktzah. Now, but if that's the case, we have a steer. So what about over here in regarding Yom Tiv? Avol, Gabi Yom Tiv, the Sosum and Tanakh Reb Yehuda did not a mevakin eitzim in akoros. Says if you have building supplies, and you want to use those building supplies for firewood, and you want to chop the wood on Yom Tiv, you're not permitted.
Because it's not designated.
No. We'll see in a moment. We'll see why. Second. Did non invakanis min akoros, lo min akorish nish mi Yom Tiv. If you had a beam, a supporting beam that broke on Yom Tiv, so you're not permitted to use that for firewood. Mukim lo Beis Hillel Reb Yehuda. The answer is it's going like Reb Yehuda, and Mukim lo Beis Hillel Reb Yehuda. Yeah. Michti. So it was like this. Regarding Yom Tiv, we find that Reb Yehuda Nossi wrote the anonymous opinion like Reb Yehuda on Yom Tiv.
Good.
There, as a result of that means Reb Yehuda Nossi's pascha on Yom Tiv like Reb Yehuda muktzah. So if that's the case, the egg that's laid on Yom Tiv is muktzah. Regarding Shabbos, that he says you're permitted to use the chopped wood from these beams that weren't designated for firewood, it's going like Reb Shimon. So we have a stira, we have a contradiction. Is he following Reb Shimon? Is following Reb Yehuda? So we're saying in regard to Shabbos, he's following Reb Shimon, which is lenient. And regarding Yom Tiv, which is lenient, he's ruling like Reb Yehuda, which is machmir, which is stringent. Like what's the rationale? Okay? So he says, the Yom Tiv mukalok Beis Hillel kavei Reb Yehuda. Why? Mich di man stomach the masdisi. Who's the one who established the Mishnah anonymously? Rebbe. Rabbi Nossi, Rabbi Yehuda Nossi, Rabbeinu HaKodesh. Ma'ishno b'Shabbos, the Sosam, Reb Shimon, U'ma'ishna b'Yom Tiv the Soslik Rabbi Yehuda. Gemara is asking why, right? It's not that question. Why? How could you could do it? Push it. Well, why can't you do it?
You have two different views here.
Unless there's a reason to differentiate between Shabbos and Yom Tiv. That's what he's going to say. Because Rabbi Yehuda himself doesn't differentiate. Rabbi Yehuda says Muktzah is Shabbos, Muktzah is Yom Tiv. But Rabbi Shimon says neither. But Rabbi Yehuda, he picked and chose here. He chose and picked. Yom Tiv, we rule like Rabbi Yehuda. And on Shabbos, we rule like Rabbi Yehuda, which is lenient, more lenient. So on Yom Tiv, if you have a residue of oil in a candle on Yom Tiv, on Shabbos, according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Shimon, you're permitted to eat it. Okay? So he says, right? Why, when regard to Yom Tov, he's ruling like Rabbi Yehuda? Amri. Okay? Amri, Shabbos the Chamir of Losis Uzulibo. This Shabbos, which is so strict, people will not come to desecrate it easily because it's so strict. Sosnu Rabbi Yehuda, the Chamiro. Yeah. Osil Zuzulei. Yeah. Sosum lo Karib Shimon, the Mekel Yom Tiv, to kill. Second. Okay. Again. Michti Mansas Masis Rebbe. Maishna Shabbos the Sosum Karib Shimon. Maishna Yom the Sosum Karib Yehuda. Amri. Shabbos the Chamiro. Shabbos carries the death penalty. Correct. Right. So it's so chomer, a person's not going to in any way allow himself to desecrate it. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I could afford to be lenient. Because the person's not going to take any liberties to be more lenient. But Yom Tiv, that it's almost like a weekday. You're allowed to cook. You're allowed to transport. So if I give a person any more leniency, he's going to turn the day into a weekday. Right. So therefore, I'm machmir. So we're laying like this. In principle, we follow Reb Shimon. We don't hold the muktzah. But we have to rein in on the person on Yom Tiv, because if you give him too much liberty, he's going to actually desecrate the Yom Tiv. Right. He won't abide even by the laws which apply to the Yom Tiv. Okay? Shabbos the Chamiro, Shabbos which is chomer, which is stringent, therefore law is zulibo. He's not come to be mezalzel Yom Tiv, the Shabbos. Sosum Reb Shimon, the Mekel, who doesn't hold the muktzah. Mm-hmm. Okay? Yom Tiv to kill, but Yom Tiv, which is lenient, you're permitted to cook and you're permitted to bake and transport. And therefore, there's a greater likelihood a person is going to desecrate it because he's going to take certain liberties. So, some Rabbi Yehuda, we can't afford to be lenient in regard to muktzah. So he established the anonymous mission like Rabbi Yehuda, the machmir. And therefore, Yom Tiv were machmir, and therefore, Basil says, lo seochel. The egg that's laid on Yom Tiv, you can't eat. What about the egg that's laid on Shabbos? According to you should eat it. But the Gemara is asking the question, we don't.
Why?
So the Gemara says because it's a gzeira. Because if the people are going to say, if you could eat the egg on Shabbos, they're going to end up... Right. We'll see. The Gemara is going to ask the question. Let's take a look in Rashi. We quoted the Mishnah. It says, you're permitted to cut gourds before the animal, and an animal that dies on Yom Tiv, on Shabbos, you're permitted to feed it to the dogs. So what is that? That's lenient. That's Reb Shimon. Let's see Rashi. He had cut gourds. They were picked before Yom Tiv. We don't say it's an inconvenience, which is not, it's a necessary inconvenience. There's an effort. Although the animal died on Yom Tiv, on Shabbos, that means when Shabbos began, it wasn't yet fit for animal consumption. Nevertheless, it's permitted to feed that carcass to the dogs. The Leslie Muktzah b'Shabbos, because Rabbi Yehuda Nasi rules, Muktzah doesn't apply to Shabbos. Hilkoch ma'bin al hashulchan. Therefore, you're permitted to take the bones and the shells off the table. The Ma'ir b'Shabbos. Mukim lo lebeis Hillel d'nei Reb Shimon. So on Shabbos, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi established that Beis Hillel follows the position of Reb Shimon, who doesn't hold the Muktzah. And as the Gemara explained, since Shabbos is so machmir, so chomer, so we're not concerned a person is taking any liberties. Otherwise, I have a contradiction. The Kaimilon Halakha is tam Mishnah. We rule like an anonymous Mishnah. The Kaimilon Halakha Beis Hillel, we rule like Beis Hillel. Otherwise, how do we reconcile? If we're saying in our Mishnah, Lo se'ochel means because we're following Rabbi Yehuda. How does he rule in Shabbos like Rav Shimon? The answer is Avagabi Yom Tiv. The Ashkan the Sosam Rabbi Yehuda. The answer is I find two Mishnayos. Shabbos, Rabbi Yehuda established it non-Mishnah like Rav Shimon. Yom Tiv like Rabbi Yehuda. So how do we reconcile it? And that we said Ditnan. What's the case? What's the case of Yom Tiv that he follows Rabbi Yehuda? It says Ein Mevaken Eitzim. You have building supplies, and now you want to chop that wood and use it for fire. You have beams stacked one on the other, which clearly says it was designated for building. See, there's no proof in the first one. The first one, that's because that's called kis. Once something's designated and negated for anything else because of its value. If I set aside things for building supplies, that means I don't want to use it for anything else but that. But what about if you have a beam that breaks on Yom Tov? Well, that it's garbage. Right? You're going to discard it. Even that, he says, you can't use that beam for burning, for fuel.
Originally.
No, evident because of muktzah.
Right.
And that's not muktzah machzor kis. Even though its value now is only for kindling wood,
Good.
he still says you're not allowed. Why? Because at the entry point of Yom Tiv, it wasn't meant for that. It was a regular beam. It broke on Yom Tiv. But since it was off limits, why was it? Because you couldn't dismantle the house.
Right.
It's got soil kuliyoma for the duration of Yom Tiv. It's not permitted. So we see Rabbi Yehuda Nossi rules that we follow the most stringent opinion on Yom Tiv. So the Mishnah is speaking Yom Tiv, Rabbi Yehuda. On Yom Tiv, we rule like Rabbi Yehuda, and we still follow position Rabbi Yehuda. And it's thinking about a hen that's a chicken laying hen. So therefore, Mushum Muktzah. Who's the one who compiled the Mishnah and wrote the Mishnah anonymously? Rebbe who see there HaMishnah Cherodiv. Now this is very important. If every opinion in the Mishnah has a name behind it,
Right.
one Rebbe Yehuda Nossi identified the name, the person. What do we have in an anonymous Mishnah? Anonymous Mishnah has a name. So why doesn't he identify who the person is? You follow the question? But why? Because sometimes, normally, if you have a minority opinion and a majority opinion, you always follow the majority opinion. But there are times where the minority opinion is the correct opinion, majority is not. So if Rabbi Yehuda Nossi will set the Mishnah majority, people will rule themselves and say, well, minority versus majority, follow majority, but it may be incorrect. Because in this may be the exception where the minority opinion is more correct than the majority opinion. So how does he avoid the whole thing? He writes it anonymously. That you think that the position he's writing is a majority opinion, although it's a minority opinion. Mm-hmm. He's concealing the fact. Otherwise people they'll get all complicated. That's Rashi over here.
Then we follow logic, why we follow the minority opinion?
Because Rabbi Yehuda Nossi's Bezdin evaluated it. And he saw that it was more correct. He says, Mad Sosam Tanamas, he said, Rebbe who see there on Mishnah, listen, when he saw the position of a Chocham, V'yoshru be'enov, and he saw it was proper and appropriate in his eyes, Shonot Stam, he recorded it anonymously, V'lo hiski shem omro, alein, he did not identify the name of the one who said it, Kadesh lu yishnuyo mipi yochid, because he doesn't want it should be stated in the name of an individual, a minority. And he recorded it in the way anonymously that it appears as if it's the majority opinion, rather than the minority opinion. And as a result of that, people are going to follow it, because they're under the impression it's a majority opinion, not a minority opinion. So it says, so why do we rule on Shabbos like the Reb Shimon, who's more lenient? Because Shabbos is chamiro, even if you give a leniency, one leniency, but people will not be lenient more than that. It'll only be to the degree that we allow them. However, Yom Tif, which is kal, which is lenient, if we give you more leniency, he'll desecrate the whole day. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda Nossi ruled like Rabbi Yehuda on Yom Tif. Therefore, Beishnol to be Yom Tif. Lo se'ochel. You should not eat it. So, in principle, who do we hold like? We hold like Reb Shimon. In principle, we should really rule like Reb Shimon, like we rule on Shabbos. Except we can't afford to follow it for Yom Tiv because it's going to get out of hand. But in Svara, Reb Shimon is the correct opinion. But we got to rein in on people. We don't rein in on them; they're going off the edge.
So we go to Rabbi Yehuda.
Like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, good. 1 second. So now, getting back. So what kind of chicken are we speaking about according to this? It can't be speaking about a hen that's for eating,
Right.
because it has no relevance to muktzah, as the Gemara said. Why? Because the egg is part of the chicken.
Right.
So we're speaking about it's a chicken machine that produces eggs.
Right.
A chicken itself is what? The hen itself is muktzah.
Right.
The question is now the egg that's laid from it, is it muktzah or not? Right? So we said it is muktzah. Now, b'mayu kimto, in what case did we establish the Mishnah? B'tarnagol semeres legalu beitzim. It's a hen that lays eggs. Umishum muktzah. And why you're not permitting to eat the egg? Because of muktzah. The more now asks a phenomenal question. So if the issue is the hold like Reb Shimon, the hold Rabbi Yehuda, what are we talking about there? Let's talk about the chicken. Person has a chicken that was designated for laying eggs.
Good.
And now he has to change your mind on Yom Tiv. Are you permitted to slaughter it?
Good.
It should say, Beis Shammai says yes, Beis Hillel says no.
So Reb Shimon-
No, what do we have to talk about the egg? Let's talk about the hen. That's the most question,
Good.
right? Why do they have to argue the egg? Let them argue the chicken itself. Are you permitted to slaughter a chicken on Yom Tiv that originally was designated for laying eggs? Beis Shammai says yes, because he follows the position of Reb Shimon. Beis Hillel says no, because he follows the position of Reb Yehuda, of Muktzah. So Gemara says, now, even though we said the one who doesn't know the Muktzah doesn't know the Nolad, but nevertheless, but it's a Chidush, right? It's a novel thing. You say maybe only to this point, not to that point. We say no, it's across the board. You don't hold of it, you hold of nothing. You hold of it, even to lesser degree. Okay, so the Gemara is going to say, Lodich kocha de Beis Shammai, the minola chari. It establishes the case about the egg because it's a greater chidush. Because we want to show you the power of the one who rules leniently. Not only does he permit the chicken,
Good.
even the egg that's a more extreme level of muktzah, even that he permits. It brings out another aspect of muktzah. If they only argue the chicken, what is that? The chicken's here. Did he have it in mind? Did he not have it in mind? But the egg, which he wasn't even aware that it existed, even that he permits. So because the egg is a greater chidush than the hen, that's where Yehuda Nossi established the machlokas by the egg rather than by the hen. Beishnol the b'yontif, is it permitted to eat or is it not permitted to eat? So Mara asks, the liflagu, the tarnagolis, lo duch koch de Beis Hillel. What are you arguing about the egg to show us the leniency of Beis Shammai? Rule in regard to the hen to show us the stringency of Beis Hillel, how strict they are. The muktzah ashri, that muktzah is not permitted. Maybe you'll say, you know why? This is a phenomenal principle. There's a concept known as koach teterodif. The position of the more lenient one is a better position percent. Why? Let's say a person's an amoritz, ignoramus, knows nothing. And he puts up a shingle, I'm the decider of this community. Knows nothing. So how does he work it out? Whoever comes to ask him a shayla, it's not permitted. It's not permitted. Finished. Right? Playing it safe. So do you have to know, does it reveal anything special about the person's proficiency? It reveals nothing. But if a person can rule leniently and he has a basis for that, shows greatness in Torah. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda Nossi always establishes the more lenient opinion because it reveals the power to what degree and the background of that person who is ruling leniently. To be machmir, play it safe. Why is it not? But it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It doesn't show anything. It almost have no basis in your machmir.
But here,
But to be lenient, you know what it means to be lenient? That means there's a rationale, there's a basis for it. So Rabbi Yehuda Nossi, when he wrote the Mishnah, he only wants to show you the novel understanding, and because of that you could be lenient. That's koach teterodif. The power of the more lenient one is preferable to establish in that context rather than put a limitation on it.
good, good, good.
Okay, we're going to stop here. Okay, we're in no rush. Tomorrow,
Very exciting.
before we go further, we're going to review everything up to this point, and then we'll do Tosus. So like this, by the time we finish, every blot we'll cover it 3-4 times.
Good. Very exciting, Rabbi. Great decision.
So Rav Shimon ruled,
Reb Shimon doesn't hold the muktzah. Reb Shimon does not hold the muktzah.
doesn't accept it at all.
Doesn't accept it. I mean, by certain muktzah, by this kind of muktzah, because he didn't think about it, he rejects that. Muktzah that it was designated, let's say, building supplies. That's called muktzah machzor kis. I'll give you a surgical scalpel, which is only used for operating. Person doesn't use that to cut meat or to cut string. That scalpel, everybody agrees you can't use for anything but that. On Shabbos or Yom Tov, either one. But the knife's a knife. No, that knife has been designated for that and nothing else. Everything else has been negated. Even Reb Shimon agrees there. Here we're talking about is a neutral understanding, is that sufficient? Reb Shimon says even as long as it's not negated and it's available, it's permitted. You can use it. That's the principle of Shimon. Reb Yehuda says no. A neutral understanding is not sufficient. You have to have specifically in mind, and if you don't have specifically in mind, you cannot use it. That's the chumr of Reb Yehuda. That's Reb Yehuda holds of muktzah. So if you had a hen that was designated for laying eggs, unless you had in mind that I'm going to eat it, which was a nullification of the obligation,